Welcome to the regular council meeting for Town of Comox on Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. We have a couple of minor adjustments to the agenda this evening for council's approval. The delegation listed as number E on page 9, Cameron Contracting, for the OCP amendment for 1533 Cedar Avenue has been removed, as well as the application on page 149 for the official community plan amendment application for 1533 Cedar Avenue. Intro report has also been removed, and that application is currently on pause. If I can get a motion for those two changes for the agenda this evening. Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the change? Opposed? And those changes are unanimous. Thank you very much. So if I can get a motion to adopt the agenda for March 4th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on the amended agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? And that amended agenda is passed. So with that change, we have 5 delegations this evening to come before council. Each delegation will have up to 10 minutes to speak with council, and then council may have some questions at the end or may not, and we will thank you for your presentations. We don't typically deliberate the decisions on the night of, but on the next council meeting, we go over any comments from the delegation. So with that, I will have Matthew Vandervoort from Comox Archives and Museum Society to discuss his 2026 or their 2026 grant and aid application. So welcome to Matthew, and I'll just have you turn the mic on when you're ready. Definitely. Thank you, and welcome to Matthew. You have 10 minutes.
So this was prepared by my board of directors. So before I start, I just want to personally say, before I start reading off a script, thank you to the town of Comox for your support in the past and for our building and for having a cultural hub in Comox and having the building paid for. It's become such a hub and an inclusive space. So before I start reading off a script by my board, I just want to say thank you guys very much. And we really appreciate all the support the town gives us. Mayor Minions, councillors, and town staff, on behalf of the Comox Archive and Museum Society, thank you for your continued support. Your funding has allowed us not only to maintain operations, but to begin meaningful revitalization of the museum. Before I begin, I would also like to take a moment to thank the mayor and the town of Comox staff for their generosity during the research phase of our celebrating 80 years in Comox, providing access to historical materials and helping us make important decisions. This year marked a turning point for the museum, and the best way to explain the importance of your funding is to briefly share a few highlights from the past year. We participated in a strategic workshop with Mighty Museum, which helped us clarify our focus and begin planning our future direction. As a result, we rewrote our mission and vision and are now developing a 3-year plan aimed on becoming an active, inclusive community hub, a place where history is not only preserved, but shared, discussed, and experienced. We introduced a new logo, a new tagline, sharing the stories of Comox, people, land, and sea, reflecting our commitment to inclusive, place-based storytelling. Early in the renewal process, we took initial steps to strengthen relationships with the Comox First Nations by working with the IHOS Gallery to sell cards by First Nations artists and giving 100% of their proceeds to the IHOS. This is a small but meaningful step toward deeper collaboration. We also partnered with the Pearl Ellis Gallery to create an exhibit celebrating Pearl Ellis' 100th birthday and develop a panel for the Ellis family reunion later in the year. The Ellis family has since become an invaluable source of stories and historical insight. We initiated an interpretive sign in collaboration with the Comox Parks Department for the Lazo Trail, highlighting the history of Lazo School and early education in Comox. We continued student tours and collaborated with the UBC student who created a back garden, combining environmental education with public engagement. At the same time, we began taking small but steady steps toward updating exhibits, recognizing that renewal is incremental but essential. On January 14th, we participated in the Town of Comox 80th anniversary of being incorporated through our 80 Years, a Time Capsule exhibit, marking the incorporation of Comox. The project has become something far greater than we anticipated. While an enormous amount of volunteer research went into the exhibit, the greatest value was the connections we made and rekindled with local historian long-term residents, and families eager to share their knowledge. What truly stood out was the community response. Opening night was filled with meaningful conversations and enthusiastic engagement. Every business card we had placed out was taken, a small but powerful sign that residents want to be involved in the community. When our initial call for photos and stories did not receive strong engagement, we personally reached out through social media and direct conversations. What we discovered was clear. People want opportunities to share their history and learn more about their community. They simply needed a more personal invitation and inviting place to gather. The response confirmed that our goal of becoming a community hub is the right direction. Attendance exceeded expectations and momentum continues to be built after opening night. The exhibit became more than a display, it became a conversation with the community. What we heard repeatedly was that Comox wants a place to exchange stories and discover local history. That is the role we are excited to step into. Because of that response, we are planning additional community-focused programming beginning this summer with a history and tea chat exploring the pivotal years of 1945 and 1946. Our next major exhibit planned for October during Women's History Month will be Extraordinary Women of Comox, highlighting women who helped shape Comox for the better, and will include community participation through outreach and another memory wall for community input. Your funding allows us to employ our full-time staff. She's referring to me. Your funding allows us to employ our full-time staff member, me. That support is foundational to keeping the museum running, supporting community outreach, planning exhibits, managing the archives, and helping create a warm and welcoming place for residents to connect with local history. With only one staff member and dedicated volunteers, we would accomplish all of this in a single year. We are not requesting an increase in funding. We understand the town faces increased costs and significant priorities. We will continue to pursue additional funding through grants and donations to support our growth as an organization. Your funding provides stability we need, stability that allows us to plan, build momentum, and respond to clear community interest. Museums should never stand still. We are working to become a place where Comox gathers to reflect and learn and to connect to the community. We respectfully request renewal for this funding so we continue our work. Thank you, Council.
Thank you so much, Matt. Much appreciated. Questions for Matt from Council on CAMS? On behalf of Council, I just want to say thank you so much. I've really seen a change in the modernization of the exhibits and the panels, and seeing your volunteers like Tammy and Jim and so many others, and just the working together on the 80th anniversary was such a pleasure. So thank you again so much for the work that you're doing as the one staff member for Comox Archives Museum. I encourage everyone, since we have an audience, to go check out the updated panels. There's some very informative historical panels from 1946 onward, with the earlier years coming soon. So with no further questions, we will look at that request, and thank you again for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Council and Mayor.
Appreciate it. Okay, our second delegation this evening will be from D'Astaire Senior Center Association. We have Myrna Holman to discuss the 2026 grant and aid application. Welcome, and hi to Myrna.
Hi, thank you for allowing us to come and show our appreciation for all the support we get from the town of Comox. And you have all the information in our application. I'll just highlight a few new things that are happening at the senior center. We have a new draft strategic plan. We worked with the board over about 6 weeks to put in extra volunteer time to develop a 3 to 5 year strategy. Our vision is to be a thriving association, redefining aging, active, social, and full of possibilities, which is what you see every day if you're next door in the center. And our mission is to enhance our quality of life as we age. We have a number of new goals this year. One, that we work with you to celebrate 50 years of support from the town. We're really feel pretty gifted in the support that we've had from the town, and we're working with your staff. We've applied for a grant to help have a great big 50th birthday party. We're also working to revitalize our cafe so that it's a place where community members and D'Astaire members can come to eat and socialize. We want to be financially stable, and we're working on that. And another goal is that the members, staff, and volunteers are valued and appreciated. We want to be a good place to work. We want to be a good employer. And we have over 100 volunteers that we engage every day. The fifth goal is that the activities reflect our members' interest and are available to the maximum number possible. We've done a space utilization study that showed us that we feel like we're bursting at the seams, but we actually have pockets in the evening and the weekends that we need to be filling with activities. And the sixth is that we strengthen and expand our strategic partnerships. 65% of our members are from Comox, and the grant helps us to have an executive director, which really has helped us in the last year to modernize what we're doing. So one big accomplishment is an online registration system, and over 75% of our members are using that now. It's giving us lots more data on where people are living, what their age is, what activities they're interested in, what classes are full, what classes aren't full, and it'll help us additionally with our space utilization. We secured funding to improve our kitchen operations, so we're getting some nice new equipment. We just installed a $15,000 stove to improve the quality of our offerings in the cafe. And we're going to improve the quality of our offerings of frozen meals, which is really important for seniors on an income, a limited income, to have good, nutritious food that they can come to the center to purchase. In 2025, we served over 1,500 members, and that number is growing. Especially with the online registration. So we really also want to thank you. I know in the OCP you heard from some Destier members, you got a few letters, and we really appreciate how the OCP changed to support the center and include seniors in the plans for the community. We appreciate it very much. I think that's it. We're very great. I guess you get that. We've got some board members here. We're very grateful for our home. That's really important. And that building is utilized incredibly well. And we've had lots more events this year for seniors. We do a membership survey and a town hall. People wanted more activities, live music, dancing, fun in the evenings, and we've been able to offer things like that. So, and I think having an executive director has really helped the board to focus on governance and have the executive director running the organization, modernizing, bringing things up to speed, and serving our members. And so we really appreciate the funding.
Thanks, Myrna. There's lots of great information in there in a short period of time, so thanks for all those facts. Looking around the table, if there are any questions, we have Councillor Haslett.
Thank you very much, Myrna. You did speak a fair amount to the executive director position. How has the search been going for your newest executive director since Alex stepped back to pursue school?
And we also thank Chris, who's at our meetings and represents the town and represents us really well in the community. We appreciate that, Chris. So timely question. The HR committee met today. We're really impressed with the quality of the applicants. So we've got 7 that look really good, and we're going to be whittling that down. We'll probably interview 4 people by the end of March and get somebody in place again. We're pretty excited.
No, that's great. I think it's easy to see the offerings that the center provides for the community, and I think that you guys are doing a fantastic job there, and I can't voice my support enough for you guys.
Thanks. We'll go to Councillor Blacklock.
I was just checking in, when we consider grant aid, one thing we consider is own source revenue. And I was just wondering what the current membership fees are per member, and whether or not, A, do you provide any financial assistance for those who are unable to pay? And B, do you charge the 35% of non-Comox residents a higher fee to utilize your facility? Just checking.
No, maybe we don't treat them quite as well. So we increased our membership fee $5 again this year. And, if somebody came to the office and said, I'm really struggling, I think we'd find a way to help them out.
So it's increased 5 to.
It's increased to $50 a year. Yeah. And then, but people also pay, of course, one of our biggest revenue generators is our classes, yoga and strength training, that sort of thing. The clubs pay a fee. So there's $50 to join, and then there's fees to do activities.
Sorry, Councillor.
I think $50 is a senior's discount. Yeah.
We'll go to Councillor Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the service that you provide to community. It's really outstanding. I'm curious, you're talking about evening and weekend programming. Have you ever considered inviting youth sometimes as well? We talk a lot about youth having maybe not so many opportunities in town. So, and then we also hear people when we're talking about community building, they're often talking about intergenerational opportunities, and that's just something I've been curious about.
Yeah, we haven't, we actually don't have space to do youth programs, but some of our members, so just bringing grandchildren in, everybody lights up. We were looking at a summer student program. We did have a couple programs that brought some younger people in that aren't kind of continuing. So really the focus has to be the 55 plus, but I totally get the intergenerational thing. One of the things we thought about with our grants is we're going to try and get as many stories from members for the 50th anniversary, and that might be an opportunity to utilize some students to take notes and write stories. So we'll think about that.
Thank you. Yeah, any opportunities to include all the different generations is fantastic. I'm just going to look online to see if there's any questions from Councillor Kerr. Looks like we're good. I just want to say, I remember when you guys hit 1,000 members, and it wasn't that many years ago. So to see that 10% growth pretty much year over year when our population is growing 1 to 2% is pretty amazing to see the traction you've had over the last couple of years as a center, and the offerings that you guys in your program are giving are growing by the year. So thank you so much. And we will be discussing the grant and aid applications later on this evening, and you're welcome to stay or depart.
Thank you.
Thanks, Myrna. Our third delegation of the evening is Melissa Schwartz from Peak Montessori Society. She is talking about the temporary use permit for 1829 Beaufort Avenue. So I will just welcome Melissa, and you can take a moment to get set up. So whenever you're ready, you'll just have the mic go red there, and your presentation is up. And welcome to Erin as well. Not sure if you're speaking. Welcome to both.
Hello, good evening. My name is Melissa Schwartz, and I'm the potential head of school and lead guide for Peak Montessori.
My name is Erin Higginbottom, and I am here in the capacity of volunteer board member for Peak Montessori Society, where I play the role as treasurer.
Thank you. How do we know when to skip the slides? Or
there is a clicker, but if it's not up there, I'll just
kidding.
And it's the opposite of what it seems like, just to give you a pre-warning.
Okay, thank you. Yay. Point one. All right, who we are. We are a small group of passionate parents and professional AMI trained Montessori educators driven by a shared vision for future and local children and our own children. We're passionate about offering a high fidelity Montessori program tailored to elementary age children. We're seeking an alternative to traditional education models, and one that nurtures creativity, fosters independence and inclusivity, and promotes critical thinking. We're preparing our children not just for school, but for life and leadership, because this is the world that they will shape.
Peak Montessori Academy, we provide a nurturing environment where children's curiosity is sparked and their natural love of learning is encouraged. Through a carefully prepared space that fosters independence, risk-taking, and problem-solving, children are guided to develop the skills, perseverance, and integrity needed to tackle real-world challenges. With freedom and responsibility, they explore their passions at their own pace, mastering new skills while building confidence, creativity, and critical thinking. By cultivating positive relationships within a community-centered approach, we empower children to become independent, compassionate problem solvers who are equipped to make meaningful contributions to the world around them. Our vision is to create a vibrant and inclusive learning community where children become self-directed, lifelong learners, and compassionate global citizens, equipped with the skills and mindset to succeed in both school and life.
So PEAK is an acronym that stands for Potential, Excellence, Achievement, and Knowledge, and of course plays on mountain peaks and the journey to the peak, and we live around amongst all these beautiful mountains, etc. We have a small but mighty team. Myself, Melissa Schwartz, Heather Evans is our secretary, Siobhan McKay is our board president, and Erin Higginbottom is our current treasurer. Go ahead.
So our school model is small intentionally. It is a micro school model. And as such, we do not intend to have a large staff. So in our first year, we will have a full-time head guide principal as well as a full-time classroom assistant. And in years to come, we will have no more than 3 staff. So the current staff members as well as an additional staff member. We connect Montessori to the world. So Montessori is accredited by or sort of quality assurance by AMI, which is Association Montessori International. It is a globally recognized certification, and we are all AMI Montessori trained. And so there will be quality assurance to this program. In addition to the Ministry of Education, we will have Montessori quality assurance as well.
Okay. So our Montessori Academy, we will guide a small group of mixed ages through K to 5 in year 1, and with the goal of expanding to kindergarten through grade 7 in years 2 to 3 and beyond. We will meet and exceed standards put forth by the BC curriculum. We will provide a safe and nurturing environment rooted in principles of Montessori pedagogy, and we will ensure that our space is accessible to our surrounding community. For our educational philosophy, this is a little teeny tiny snapshot of Montessori philosophy that is for a great topic for another day. Whoops, not our focus at the moment, but just an idea of Montessori philosophy. How will we do this? So this is kind of like a mock schedule as to what would happen. We would be arriving from 8:30, and then our day would be till about 4 o'clock, but dismissal around 3:30. We're also playing with the idea of having a 4.5-day week, where Friday would be like a flex Friday. And we could do this when we've mapped out what the academic hours are needed required for schooling. The amount of hours that we are spending in the 4.5 days goes above and beyond still of instructional time required for children. We would also be adhering to SD71s, like following their school year calendar as well, along with staff holidays, etc. And one more thing about the Flex Friday, that would allow for admin and prep time, as well as, since we are a smaller staff, there isn't prep time really allotted throughout the week. So that half-day Friday would allow for that.
So we did some market research. Currently, there's only 2 independent schools in Comox Valley. There's a large homeschool hub and a few programs of choice within the public school district. So we believe there is room for another independent schooling choice here in Comox. We have a projected growth where, again, it's a micro school model. So we anticipate starting with no less than 10, but no more than 15 children in the first year, growing to 20 to 25 in the second and third years, and maxing out at 40 students in total. We believe that this will allow for a really beautiful, tight-knit community, and it will be a sustainable model for education. We have a demographic there on children under 14 in the Comox Valley. And then we have our listed programs of choice that are currently offered in SD71. And we're looking also at recruiting families from the 80 some odd children that are currently in ECE programs, including Montessori programs here in the district. This is a temporary use permit. And so what we're hoping to do is be able to start growing this micro school in a good way. We are working with the Ministry of Education's timelines. We are set to open September 2026. We do need an interim certification in place by June 1st. And so the sooner we're able to find a location, the better we are at readying ourselves for opening September 2026. Our long-term plan is to be working with one of our community organizations here in Comox to create a bricks and mortar permanent location. So that's the request for this temporary use permit today.
And of course, building something more permanent takes time and money and dreams and all the great work. So we need some more time before we can build something more permanent.
Just a quick look at how we intend to grow over the next few years. Tuition, there is tuition as it is an independent school. In the first year, we're 35% funded by the Ministry of Education. In subsequent years, we are 50% funded. And this is the same model as other independent schools in the area. We are a registered, or we will be a registered charity as well, and we operate as a nonprofit society.
And then lastly, we have some parent testimonials. I'm not going to read through them, but I personally have been working in the Valley for 5 years as a Montessori educator. And with other Montessori educators, we have created a really solid base. And we have parents that are wanting this as well. There are families behind us that we've been working with as well. So just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa and Aaron, and I'll just have you stay there just for any questions that council may have. Councillor Grant.
Thank you. So I just have two quick questions. Would you be open all year round, or would it go like the school system does now, so close in the summer?
Correct.
Okay, because that was my next question was, what about parking? Like not parking, but dropping your kids off. So are they going to pull in the front, drop them off and then go? Or have you got a plan for that, or how's it going to work?
Yeah, so we've been working closely with the landlord, and we did put out an introduction letter to the tenants of the building as well, stating our intent for use of space, and those were some of their concerns too. So we plan to work with the town of Comox to build a reciprocal relationship to use the marine parking space here for a meeting point in the mornings in a window of time where we would greet the children, we would perhaps play a little game, do a little team building, then we would escort the children up to the location and they would be guided into the classroom. We would walk down here for outdoor recess around lunchtime as well. And then the same process for pickup at the end of the day, where we would walk down and have parents picking up down in the park here. We do not intend to bring any extra traffic towards the building other than what the regular street parking allows.
Thank you. I believe we have Councillor Mayer and then Councillor Swift with questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I think this is a beautiful offering to community. It's really important for people to have different alternatives to learning. And I know Montessori has been really great for a lot of families. You might have had it up there and I might not have been able to see it, but what's the price range of how much will it cost families? Good question.
Yeah, so we are beholden to the per person cost per student that the district has, which is currently around $13,000. And as an independent school, we would be required to stay within that limit. And with the 50% funding that the ministry would allot the independent school, our maximum that we would be charging is $6,500 per student per year. Yeah.
Thanks. We have Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I'm just wondering how you select your students.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to? Okay. We have enrollment policies, admission policies that align with ministry outlines. And first and foremost, we do not discriminate based on religion, sex, gender identity, any sort of human rights. And so what we are looking for is we will have an enrollment process where, you know, families have a chance to build a relationship with us. And we want to make sure that we are honoring what the family values first and foremost, and that their values are aligning with what we're offering as a Montessori program. And so we do take into consideration the age. We do take into consideration the class dynamic and composition. And we do take into consideration if we are able to meet the needs of the family. And that would be our only enrollment criteria.
Looking around the table, I'll ask a quick question and then come back to see if there's questions. The temporary use permits are somewhat newer through our new bylaws, and What would be the impact if instead of like a 3-year, you were given a 2-year temporary use permit? What would kind of the impact on timeline be? 3 years is the max setting, but of course there's the option of 1, 2, 3. So
Yeah.
for our discussion later, when we won't be able to ask questions, what would the impact of say a 2-year pilot be versus the full 3-year?
It would light a fire under us for sure to get a more permanent location. But that is in the works.
Yeah, the definitely those longer term conversations I've already been in the works. It just in terms of like how quickly are we able to come up with the funding for a permanent location and then build it. And yeah, so having so 3 years would be more beneficial for sure. If 2 was our only option, we would take it and run and do awesome things.
Okay, I think it's more on a renewal basis, just so that if there was concern, but again, there wasn't huge concern. There was a couple things about parking, etc. I'll just look around the table if there's any more questions. And that looks like everything. So we will be discussing the temporary use permit later on this evening. Thank you. Just going to remind people near the door, if there's like talking or electronic noises, it's a little bit distracting. So if you're inside the building, please just mind the noise. Our 4th delegation this evening is from Catherine Crow from Ecole Rob Road PAC Playground Committee to discuss the funding request for an inclusive playground that's in the works. And so you'll have up to 10 minutes, and I'll just have you turn the mic on there, Red. And you're welcome to introduce both of you.
Thank
Welcome.
you for having us here today. My name is Nikki and this is Catherine. Both of us are parents from Ecole Rob Road and we are members of the Playground Committee. Through my work as a pediatric therapist in town, I have a strong understanding of the importance of children's development and play. But from my lived experience and recent training with Rick Hansen, I have come to realize the impact accessible play spaces can have on children with disabilities and the greater population. My son was born with a rare neuromuscular condition and uses a walker and wheelchair to get around. In our school's current state, he will not only be not able to get to the playground, let alone use it. And I want to give him and all the other kids in the community that are in similar circumstances a chance to play, feel included, and be a kid. Ecole Rob Road serves students from across the Comox Valley, not just the surrounding neighborhood. The school has not seen any significant structural changes since the 70s. SD 71 has prioritized our school for a new playground this year. The base funding provides schools with $195,000 to replace their outdated existing playgrounds. The purpose of this grant is to help schools replace inaccessible playgrounds with accessible ones that are universally designed. The state of our current playground is awful in terms of accessibility. There are high wooden borders and they're both full of pea gravel. A playground is an integral part of a school, a child's learning and play and development. Having a playground that is completely inaccessible is depriving children with mobility needs of a basic right to a component of their education. We formed the Playground Committee at the beginning of last year after viewing recent projects in town, talking with district staff, and consulting with industry professionals. We became aware that the funds that we would be given would not be adequate to build a truly inclusive play space for the students and the broader community. We are here today requesting your support to invest in the project to create a lasting community legacy grounded in accessibility and inclusion. There are 2 inclusive playgrounds in the Comox Valley, one in the Marina Park, so thank you very much, and the other one, the Sky Park. There are no inclusive school playgrounds. The universally designed space is somewhere where everyone can play and feel welcome and included. It gives us the user the choice of how they engage with the space. This includes multiple forms of play, range of risk, landform design, ease of access, and rubber surfacing throughout. Right now, current CSA standards for accessible playgrounds require 1 entry point to be accessible and 1 piece of equipment that someone with a disability could use. But usually the design makes no sense, and while the intentions are good, they often end up creating exclusionary play spaces rather than inclusive ones. Our goal is to design a play space which ensures every child can play, explore, and interact in a meaningful way. People of all ages interact with play spaces, and it is important to consider parents, teachers, and grandparents when thinking about the usability of a space. Universally designed playgrounds reflect a philosophy where diversity is celebrated and all children are given the chance to engage, learn, and thrive. A key feature of these playgrounds is the soft rubber surfacing, which is mobility aid friendly. The cost of the rubber surfacing is the main barrier to building these inclusive play spaces, but without the surfacing throughout the playground, becomes exclusionary and isolates certain individuals, creating segregation.
The proximity of the Comox Rec Center and École Rob Road allows for a unique opportunity for partnership. By working together, we can create a community hub for active outdoor play. Combining resources will allow us to double the reach of public dollars and avoid duplicating infrastructure. In reading the town's Parks and Trails Master Plan, we recognized how partnership with École Rob Road would help the town to meet a number of needs recognized in this plan. The master plan recognizes that the town has an above average number of playgrounds. However, many of these playgrounds are aging and very few of them are inclusive. The playground at the Comox Rec Center is at the end of its usable life, and public feedback clearly supports action. In the Parks and Trails survey, 89% of participants support improvements to playgrounds. Partnering with École Rob Road would allow the town to meet this identified need in a cost-efficient way. A shared inclusive playground at École Rob Road would reduce the need for a play structure for 2 to 12-year-olds at the rec center and allow the town to focus on replacing the aging playground with a top playground for 2 to 5-year-olds, while still significantly improving overall access to play. This partnership allows the town to address multiple priorities identified in the master plan, including accessibility, aging infrastructure, and efficient use of public funds through a single coordinated investment. This playground vision is a potentially what it could look like at École Rob Road. We're proposing a fully inclusive, exciting new playground that can be used by students during the day and by the public outside of school hours. A town wayfinding sign can help direct community members from the rec center across the street to the school. The project is ready to go ahead, and we expect to have shovels in the ground at the close of the school year with the goal of opening a new playground in September. We're aware that the town does not have this project in its current budget plan. However, we understand that the pump track is unable to go ahead and hoped that the town might consider reallocating some of the funds to this project, as it also supports outdoor play for youth. The town has an opportunity to leverage the significant momentum already behind this project, including $164,000 of PAC fundraising in combination with local community partnerships with groups such as the Comox Rotary, or the Courtney Rotary. That's very important. Yeah, I know. $195,000 playground grant from the BC provincial government. And the maintenance of the playground will be handled by the school board, resulting in long-term cost savings for the town. Working collaboratively, we can create a hub of inclusion and play for the whole community.
Your contribution means that children who have been excluded from play spaces or only able to access a small portion of it will have a space to be included and welcomed. Your contribution will help us create a space for all children and residents of Comox without barriers. And it will be the first of its kind school playground, a school that any child in the Valley can choose to attend and can be accessed by the whole community. By supporting our vision, you have the opportunity to make a significant impact on many children's lives. Your contributions will provide children of Rob Road and Comox with a legacy of compassion, unity, and equitable access. We believe this project reflects the town's commitment to inclusion, accessibility, and responsible use of public funds. I have a video, but I don't know if it will play. How do I? Can you click on that? Oh, the video won't play. Okay, it's a message for my son, but
you can send it to us after so we
we'll
can see it.
take time for any questions. This is our current playground, and this was the last school playground built, just for reference.
Thank you for those updates. And again, you can definitely circulate the video to us because he took the time to do that. Thank you to Nikki and Catherine. And I will go to council for questions. It looks like we have a couple. It isn't currently in our budget plan and we don't have a grant and aid program, but there will be some questions to learn more about it so we can discuss it at our next council meeting. We have Councillor Haslett and then Councillor Hazlett and then Councillor Swift, please.
Thank you guys very much. What's the lifespan of a playground?
Well, this one has been there for probably over at least 30 years. I don't know the lifespan of it. Yeah, it's a good question.
Councillor Swift and then Councillor Mayer.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks very, very exciting. But what kind of contribution were you hoping to get from the town?
We have had multiple quotes and iterations of like our dream vision, and we are applying for other grants from, Rick Hansen Association and Tired Stewardship of BC. We're actively applying for grants. But we were hoping we've raised $164,000. The school district is contributing $195,000, and our big vision project is about $460,000. So we were hoping for potentially $100,000 contribution to the project.
Thank you for doing some of that math there. I was going to ask the same question.
I've had this talk a few times.
460. Councillor Mayer, please.
Thanks. First, I just want to say thanks for your advocacy on behalf of your son and all the kids who will benefit from playgrounds like this. I know that's a lot of work as a parent, so thank you.
Excited for it to come.
Yeah. I'm curious if you have approached the DPAC. I'm really surprised to hear that there isn't a single universally accessible playground at any school in the Comox Valley. That is shocking. So I'm just wondering if you've approached the DPAC to request some policy change there.
That's a great idea. I'm the DPAC rep for Echo Road, so I will definitely bring that to them. Yeah.
We have talked to all the higher ups at the school district and brought this to their attention that playgrounds are essentially an afterthought and the funding comes from government grants for them. So, we've definitely made some noise, as they would call it, with this project because, Valley View Playground was the last accessible playground done 2 years ago. And you can see that it has one tiny accessible part and the rest is not. So, we have just been doing our best to raise awareness to the school board that this isn't okay. And we want to set an example of what can be done. And
We did let the school board know that we were coming to council, and they were very supportive of the idea of a partnership between the town and the school board.
It'd be great to see it in policy so that future parents don't have to do the same level of advocacy. The other part is the risky play part, right? As a therapist, you would know about that. So can you just tell me how you're incorporating some of those best practices that we're learning?
So I wrote my thesis in grad school on risky play. I am just going to go back to, again, like these are just examples. But you can see that to create an inclusive play space, what makes it inclusive is the servicing. It allows children to choose to engage in the equipment however they choose. If you don't let them get to a certain place, they never have the option to choose. But any child, disability or not, can choose to go on the ground level equipment. They can choose to climb up. There's transfer spots. So all this design allows all kinds of play. And the most important thing about it is that it lets the child choose what they feel that they can participate in. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Okay, well, I appreciate you bringing this to the council table and all of us being able to learn something from it. It will follow up on a future council meeting. Again, it's not something we typically have funding for school playgrounds, but we will discuss it at our next council meeting. So thank you very much to Catherine and Nikki for advocating. So we are on to our final delegation of the evening, and I apologize if I get the names incorrect, but I have Helene Dompierre and Peter Outridge for discussion on 1533 Cedar Avenue.
Thank you very much.
So welcome, and just a reminder that this application has been pulled, but you're welcome to chat on it now.
Thank you very much. Yes, we're aware that it has been pulled. Do I get the first slide up? Do I push the button here? There was a PowerPoint. I got acknowledgement from David that you'd received a PowerPoint. David, your admin clerk, he acknowledged receipt of it. I sent it last week. That's very unfortunate.
We can just take a pause, and just a reminder, if anyone wanted to depart after, you're welcome to, and we'll just take a pause and find that. I haven't seen it.
Okay, please.
We'll just take a 2-minute pause.
Sent from?
I believe it was sent from my email, pmoutridge@gmail.com. That's spelled PMOUTRIDGE. So PMOUTRIDGE, and that was sent. Looks like it's there after all. Thank you. So back a little bit to get this thing. That's the one. Yep. All right, can we get a full screen on that?
Oh, you live.
Yes, yes. So Ellen and I live at 1532 Balsam in Comox, which is one of the neighbouring properties to the 1533 Cedar property in question here.
Okay, so we're gonna get started again. We hadn't started yet, so he's just talking to one of the counselors here. So we're gonna get started back. So we welcome Helene and Peter, and you'll have 10 minutes, and council may have questions after.
Thank you. I have to apologise for my voice. My wife is a teacher, and she picked up something from a little typhoid Mary last week, and now we both have it. I'll try to speak up as much as I can. So we live at 1532 Balsam Avenue in Comox, and we're here representing the Pritchard Road Neighbourhood Association. We're both also members of the Brooklyn Creek Watershed Society, because obviously Brooklyn Creek is immediately adjacent to this property. It flows through much of Comox, and many people here care a great deal about that creek. But we're here strictly regarding our neighbourhood concerns. I know John Nielsen, the president of BCWS, is going to be speaking to you later about their review of this proposal, and I think you have copies of their report, which it is publicly available. I think everybody here has seen it now. But I'm sure you'd like us to come to the point to give you sort of an exact summary. So the feeling of the people in the neighbourhood, and in our association now we have over 65 members. We're rapidly growing. We weren't in existence 3 weeks ago, but this proposal focused our attention, focused our minds. We realized we're not paying enough attention to what's been going on. And I would not have been speaking here today knowing that the proposal's been temporarily withdrawn, but then Don Cameron released a letter today on Facebook, his Facebook, saying that he acknowledges there are concerns and he's looking forward to collaborating with local residents. So that's a great first step, because we do feel as though we've been a little bit isolated in terms of information and in terms of input to the decision-making process. So if we're now going to be able to have some input, that's great. So I did want to just briefly mention the main conclusion of the BCWS review, and this is publicly released on Monday in their newsletter, so everyone can see this already. But the directors strongly and unanimously recommended that the town reject the proposal to receive the amendment for consideration. And having read the review, and as a professional scientist, 45 years or more, I actually strongly agree with that review and the grounds for it. In general, we believe that the punitive benefits to the town have been overstated by the proponent, and the potential threats to the creek and the actual effects on the neighbourhood have been understated. But we think there's a way forward here. Our bottom line is that we would absolutely be overjoyed to have townhouses and duplexes on that site, because we think there's a need for it in the town. The area schools, there are 4 schools within walking distance of that site, and they need young families with kids to maintain enrolment. So that's our preferred option by far. And we definitely are not on board with any kind of apartment building on this site. We think the dangers to the creek are too great, and the impacts on our neighbourhood are too great. Of course, everybody has opinions about whether buildings fit in neighbourhoods. Design is like art, you know, it's very much in the eye of the beholder, whether you like something or not. And here's 2 contrasting opinions about this particular proposal. One from the developer's architect, which the town staff included in the proposal that you have in front of you, saying the buildings have been designed with careful attention to siting scale and massing to ensure compatibility with the existing neighbourhood. And then an independent built heritage consultant from Sydney, Australia, actually provided this assessment. And for the audio record, I'll read it. The scale of the building is simply not appropriate to the character of the area, as it is between 2 and 3 times taller and wider than any of the surrounding buildings. Massing effect is exacerbated by the absence of any other building of a similar height in the visual field. And if you drive down or up Pritchard Road, if this building was built, you would see it from a long way away, and it would stand out above every other building in the area. He goes on, the looming effect on surrounding properties will almost certainly result in overshadowing and a loss of privacy for these neighbouring properties. Now, full disclosure, this consultant in Australia is our son, Daniel, who's been working in this field for a number of years, and these issues are common around the world. And in Sydney, they are very much a big issue, and he has worked on hundreds of similar issues in his time. But please don't think that he made this opinion to please dear old mum and dad. I mean, for one thing, he's a consummate professional. And for another, if you knew my son, our son, it's very much genetic. I've met brick walls that are more persuadable than Daniel. So this is his professional opinion, not a personal opinion, and one that he will stand by if required, as he often is called into council meetings to provide these opinions. So we thought it'd be useful for you to look at what this building will look like if it got built. What we've done here is simply photoshopped the image from the proposal and scaled it accurately vertically using 2 houses at the end of Bolson Avenue, West Buses on the left and Glen Lawson's on the right. You can see on the left side there the vertical scales. So the average height of building B on this proposal is 15 metres. And it is 2 to 3 times higher than the existing houses. Also true for all of the houses on Dogwood, Cedar, Stewart, Bryant, Balsam, Birch, you name it. So we did want to point out that the Photoshop's compression required to get the vertical scale accurate means that the width of the building is actually greatly compressed. In reality, it would extend past the field of view there. So it's actually much more massive than that image suggests. These concerns about the neighbourhood, they're not just from us. When we wrote the letter that's on file, that was before all this PRNA thing started, and we've talked to hundreds of people in the area now. We have letterboxed, we have been walking around talking to people in their homes on streets on Brooklyn Creek Greenway, and this is a summary. In addition to the visual amenity, the impact on property values has been mentioned by a few people. And this is something that does occur in Sydney, Australia, at least, when you have overshadowing and massing on streets. even if it was a 1% loss of property value in sales, I mean, why should we experience that loss if we're not actually going to benefit or even be sort of neutral to this proposal? Loss of privacy is a major one for the immediate area. Now, from 3rd, 4th, and 5th level, you could look into our backyards and into our bedroom and living room windows. Now, the proponent does say there's a hedge along that rear boundary line on our side, and that's true. They don't mention that hedge is only 8 feet high. So privacy is lost. At 1532, we have 60 to 80 feet high fir trees, but the plan calls for half of those to be cut down. So again, loss of privacy. Many people in Comox love to see the stars at night. And a lot of kids in cities don't see stars, but here you can. But we're going to lose a lot of that because all apartment buildings have floodlights on them around the parking area, which is going to be the size of a medium supermarket.
You have 2 minutes, Peter.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
There's peace and quiet issues and also overflow parking. There's going to be a lot of overflow parking on our surrounding streets because the 1 car per unit bylaw is simply not accurate. So we have to ask you, if you were living next door, would you approve this application? That's an honest question. I'm not being rhetorical. I really would like to know. We also think that this totally contradicts the new OCP that is less than a month in existence, and the majority of council supported that. Would you now pass an amendment that would change the growth area boundary, double the allowed building height outside there, and basically undermine the legacy of the new OCP that you voted into being? So our request really is to please respect the new OCP by rejecting this request. The new OCP allows for townhouses and duplexes up to 3 stories, and we would be happy with that. Don't take chances with the creek. Don't do planning by amendment because that only benefits developers. We know about the Housing Accelerator Fund and what that means for the mandate, and we think this would help fill the missing middle, which is townhouses and duplexes. And that is the preferred housing option for young families with kids, much more so than apartments. And goodness knows this area does need more young families. We are gentrifying, we are getting older, but we could actually boost the number of young families. We give them an option that we like and that they can afford. Minions and council members, thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh. Just for future reference, we don't actually allow clapping or booing or participation, so I would ask you please respect that. It's very important to our decorum. So I didn't mention it before, which I normally do, but we don't do audience participation out of respect for all participants involved. Thank you for keeping that to 10 minutes. That was a perfect 10 minutes. I'll just remind everyone again, we don't have the application before us. It is on pause, and so that does partly diminish our abilities to really get into discussions about the application because it is on pause. But I will go with questions from council, and I'll look online after we go to Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I might have got my answer with the applause you're not allowed to give, but I was just wondering, you said that you'd be good with duplexes and townhouses. I was wondering, are you speaking for yourself or are you speaking for the neighborhood?
For most of the neighborhood, we talk to people around. They're not against development. But he has to be reasonable. He has to fit with what people want. And, you know, townhouses, then you will have places for gardens too. You will have some green. If we were to accept something like what the developer show us, there's absolutely no ground surface that's not covered by tarmac or a rooftop. There's no percolation anywhere. There's no green anywhere. And when you ask, where's the playground if you say it's for family? There's no playground. There's no room for playground. So if you have townhouses, they can be one beside the other. You still have room for playgrounds. You still have room for some green somewhere, you know?
Yeah, I was just wondering because, you know, there's a lot of people in that neighborhood with differing opinions. If you're speaking for all of them, that's one thing. And if you're only
well, we're talking for the association.
Okay.
For the PRNH.
So is that the neighborhood then?
Well, it's most of it or a good part of it.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, I'll just look around the table if there are any questions from council. Okay, again, the proponent did put out today that it's on hold with further information to come, and we don't know the timeline of that. It is in the control there. So thank you for your delegation this evening. And
Thank
we'll
you.
take a quick pause for if anyone wants to depart. We will just allow that, or you're
Thank
welcome
you.
to stay. Thank you very much. Okay, not a formal break, but we'll get back to the meeting now. Oh, we are waiting just a moment here. We'll get to the agenda on page 13. We are under adoption of minutes.
Moved.
I wasn't quite there yet. On Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, the regular council meeting minutes for adoption. Moved and seconded. Please use your mics. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. There are no council committee meeting minutes and reports, so we are on consent agenda. There are 5 items there to be received.
Sorry.
1 through 5 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of receipt? That is passed unanimously. And if there are any items that council would like to pull out, we have Councillor Hazlitt.
I'd like to pull up 3.
Number 3 from the Chief Superintendent of RCMP. That is seconded. Second.
Had a good look at this. I had the ability to go to the police station not long ago and do a tour of it. They're absolutely jammed in there on all levels. It's easy to see that they need a new station. The size of that is, I think, is going to be the really important thing. What I'm hoping we can do is early in these conversations with them is really rally around trying to get 911, perhaps PC ambulance, and who also has an aging station in Courtenay there, and the crime lab that they have. If we can get all of those under one building, I think that there is a really good opportunity for us to be able to look at funding from other levels of government, the provincial and the federal, so that we can look to kind of ease the burden on the residents of the valley here. It's not going to be a cheap building. I think if we, in the early stages of the planning, can really look to be advocates to keep those facilities all under one roof, it would go a long way for us being able to get funding from, again, the other levels of government.
Thanks for those comments. And yeah, this letter basically outlines where they expect municipal government to come forward and start the process, whereas before there was a little bit different of an explanation. So we are at a staff level discussing with City of Courtenay what that looks like, and we don't have an update as of tonight. So this is something that will come forward at a future, but near future meeting with council for updates. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, do we know how much the regional district is paying into this, or if they're paying into it? Like, I still haven't gotten an answer to my question of who's all paying for this.
I don't think the model is set up yet, and there hasn't been a financial function set up, but CEO Wall's nodding his head. So it's something that really needs to be started. So because it hasn't been started, the numbers have not been determined, or the share. That's my understanding.
Yeah, we're going to need to figure out how we're going to do this, whether it's assessment-based, population-based. We're going to need to have pretty deep conversations with the regional district about how the electoral areas are expected to contribute. And beyond that, especially looking at the electoral areas, we can take a look at what maybe has been done in the past for our CMP buildings, but we also know that the province has this paper that has been out for a couple years talking about a need to shift some of those policing costs to the electoral areas. So we may want to do that and have this conversation in the context of a changing landscape of our CMP funding.
Yeah, because I know that their thoughts, or I think their thoughts are that, well, the province pays for us, so we'll be good that way. But the province never seems to pay their share when it comes to this. So I mean, I think it's important that we have those discussions and really find out how much they're willing to put into the pot, because their share should be fairly large, I would think.
CEO Wall.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how that gets determined. What I can say, and it's not fortunately, it's not an issue that this council is going to have to deal with, but it's something that should be on the mind of people who are thinking of running for the next term. Regardless of what the share and cost split is going to be, the earlier we start putting money into reserve for this, the easier it is going to be. We do not have any money being put into reserve for this building, and it is going to be a very expensive building, and our portion of it is going to be substantial. So the earlier we start saving for this, the easier it will be when the time comes.
Thanks, CEO Wall. And again, we sent a letter saying we were in support of starting the analysis on the costs, and the letter came back kind of giving next steps. And we are in discussions with City of Courtenay to see where they're at currently, so we can be on the same page. So I would anticipate we should have an update on this in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So either at our next regular council meeting or first thing in April as a timeline. Are there any other comments or questions on letter number 3? Okay, are there any other items that you would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, so we're moving on. We're on page 61 under unfinished business. We have the 2026 grant and aid applications.
Second.
Receipt has been moved and seconded, and questions or comments on the recommendation? Okay, so if we go forward with recommendation, we're just receiving for discussion and we're not passing the amounts this evening, or we can go forward and talk about some of those grant amounts. Just a question to CEO Wall for timeline wise, looking at budget implications. If we just receive tonight and take further consideration from the delegations this evening, we would need to be looking at this in early April, if not in 2 weeks. Is that correct for timeline for budget?
That's correct. So are you talking about reducing the overall amount, or if the total amount that is going to be spent is staying the same, it will not have an impact on budget. If you want to look at the total amount spent, then that could have an impact on budget. But again, if all you're talking about is how you're going to allocate it between the groups, no impact on budget, and you can make that decision at your leisure.
Okay, so just a reminder before we decide if we just receive or get into some of the numbers there, we have a funding amount maxed out at 151,000 to those 6 organizations, and we are not sure Coalition may or may not be applying this year, and that would give potentially some wiggle room if there was any changes on the other numbers, but the total is 151 at the moment. Councillor Mayer.
So I would suggest that we hold on to that money for the coalition. First of all, given that I don't think they have a coordinator right now, and second of all, maybe considering holding it in support of Connect, since we know that there's some funding gaps happening there. We want to make sure that those services are maintained for the unhoused in Courtenay. I would be comfortable keeping the number the same as it has been in the past and just holding that 40,000 until we have a little bit more information about what's needed to support Connect.
Sounds good. And I'll just recognize that the total requests, if they came forward for 40,000, would be at 162,000, and we have 151,000. So we'd be then looking at 11,000 that we would be taking off of the requests or keeping the numbers the same. But there's about $11,000 difference if 40,000 does end up coming through. On page 63, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, I'm just wondering on the coalition, since they haven't put a project in and they have 40,000, but we get that money out of our affordable housing contribution, so we couldn't actually take that and move it to other groups because it wouldn't be affordable housing. Is that correct?
We couldn't do that without increasing the total budget, I don't believe.
Right, so we can't just take it and move it around. Okay.
Correct. So for example, if we were looking at the Comox Art Gallery, they've asked for 7,000, which is 2,000 more, or Sid Williams is asking for 10,000 more. I think that's where that 12,000 difference comes in. That would be potentially, we'd be looking at increasing or discussing that amount tonight or at a near. I believe we can still do that in 2 weeks and still be in time. Councillor Grant.
So do we have an end date for when you have to have your, they haven't asked us for any money. Like, at what point do we say, okay, we got to move ahead here? Because I think in our policy, we should have an end date for them to bring an application in, just so that this doesn't happen again.
I'm going to go over to staff. I believe there is an end date, but we've been having side meetings about the shortfalls with the Connect Center that very recently got discussed with the provincial budget. So it would be up to the will of council, but does the policy have a date? Over to CAO Wall.
Yeah, the application date has come and passed. Again, that did happen last year. I think I'd caution council to be careful on this group specifically because there was a long-standing contribution made to the group of 30, 35, whatever it happened to be, that didn't require an application. So it may be that they don't believe that identifying their project prior to the application deadline is important because of that long-standing work. So again, I'm not saying that it couldn't be indicated to them in the future, but on this one, I would just be careful because they may not see it the same way that we do with this new application process. They may be thinking of it still as it was in the past because they never did have to apply. It was always just set aside.
Yeah,
Follow up.
But didn't we go over that with them last year or the year before? Say, hey, you got to bring us your project. You got to tell us what you're doing and you have to apply. I think we went through that with them.
Last year, the big message that was sent to the group was that council would not fund operational costs anymore, and you granted a sort of one-time exemption, and that your expectation this year would be that you would fund a capital project. The time I could be wrong, but I don't recall the timeline of it being an issue because you had just set the $40,000 aside for when they were able to come.
I think unfortunately it's a question mark right now because we really don't know what's to come and we don't know if something else is going to come in its place. So just leaving it as a placeholder and an unknown because the application deadline is passed, it will be at the discretion of council when a request comes forward, how we deal with it. But making the reduction in the budget that doesn't actually do anything to the bottom line probably doesn't make sense. I think the focus possibly for this evening, just to move forward for some of these organizations, would be Sid Williams Cedar has been at 30,000 and they've asked for 40. So do we want to stay at 30 or is there another number in between there? And Comox Art Gallery has asked from 5 to 7. So that's kind of the points that we probably want to determine so we can get that total number nailed down if possible. Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I'm hoping we're going to be able to stay at the 150 total. And I'm wondering about, I realize there's a gap with the Connect Center, but we had identified that 40,000 to go to a capital project. So could we even support Connect with these funds?
We can because it's at the discretion of council. I don't believe that's we made the decision last year too. So even if it says it's for capital, we have done operational. So again, I would just say it's at the will of council and we really don't know if that request is going to come through. We made a request to the province to please come up with that 1.5 year to 2 year threshold before the shelter is getting built. But we don't know what their response is going to be. We don't know what it's going to be. All we know is BC Housing stopped funding Connect and it will close. And so if there's a solution that all community could come together with, let's say our ask was 40,000, it would be really at our discretion whether we do that or not. But we don't know what that ask is or if it's going to come, but it's probably likely. Not from Coalition potentially, but.
Okay, but if we wanted to fund the Connect Center, we have money in the Affordable Housing Fund. We could do that anyway.
Correct.
So it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I think staff's point was if Coalition kind of they're cut, I don't want to say on pause because I don't know the exact terminology, but if they get their leadership together and come through with the request when we've been giving it for so long and that's been our kind of lever with that service, it would be prudent to possibly keep it there so we have the option. COO.
Sorry, yeah, I just wanted to add on this discussion. Councillor Grant had it correct because this is coming from your affordable housing reserve. The decision you make whether to set it aside or not set it aside doesn't impact your revenue needs this year. So I'm not sure you actually need to make a decision on this. You can just leave it and come back to it when the request comes.
I was saying the same thing, but to answer if the request comes through with whether it's a capital or operational request, whether it's Coalition or it's to do with the Connect, it will always be at the will of council. But yeah, I'm trying to redirect us to those two.
Wow.
It's an unknown, so it's hard to discuss. Councillor Mayor.
So sorry, I just want to make sure I understand then if that funding comes from a different bucket, the total without. Well, it's 122. Your numbers seem to be different than mine.
122 is the request. We have 151.
Oh,
so 111,000 is without. So again, there's that.
I see.
There's a
without the additions, additional asks.
Correct.
Okay.
Without the additional asks. That being said, there's still the numbers aren't quite there.
Yeah, so maybe just to help council through on your decision, I think the first choice you have to make, let's push. No rush, sorry. Let's push the Coalition money to the side because that doesn't impact the decision you have to make. I'd say the first decision you have to make is, are you willing to increase the maximum amount you're funding, which would increase the amount of revenue you need to collect this year, i.e. Another bump up in taxes. And if you're not willing to do that, then you can take a look at how you're going to allocate it, whether you keep it the same or shuffle things around.
Thanks for that clarification. I'm just going to go online. Councillor Kerr has not had a chance, so then we'll go around the table. Councillor Kerr.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm just in support of keeping things at the 2025 level. Again, I think these organizations do great work in our community, and we also recognize that budgets are tight. So I think keeping them at 2025 level makes the most sense. And then we can deal with the coalition ask when it comes. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Kerr. We'll go to Councillor Hazlitt.
Thanks. I agree with basically everything Councillor Kerr had to say there. I think we should keep everything at the 2025 levels. A little further down on our agenda, we're talking about budget. We just heard from CAO Wall that we've got the RCMP coming. We need to start putting money aside. If we have got these groups out there that are still looking for funding that haven't that have showed up, we don't just need to look for places to spend money. We have groups that have come to us and made the ask. We don't necessarily need to go find somewhere to spend $30,000 if we don't have to. Yeah, I'd like to keep everything at the same levels that we had in 2025.
Okay, I'm kind of hearing similar thoughts on that. So the two increases would stay at the 2025 level at this time. And before we vote on keeping the number there, or we may not even have to do we need a motion if the number is staying the same?
No, you don't need to make a motion if the number's staying the same. You do need to make a motion if the individual amounts for each group is staying the same, then you'd pass.
Okay.
That.
They are staying the same, so.
I would move that we stay at this 2025 level and we keep the allocations the same.
Okay, I'll second that. And for discussion, Councillor Hazlitt.
So with that motion, we're not taking in any new requests for money, correct? Where it's just the same groups that got the money last year and we're not looking for somewhere else to spend on.
That would be the 6 groups in the policy. Just a question over to staff. I believe last year we ensured when we sent out the checks and the letters that this was kind of 1 year funding, annual funding, and we would relook at it. And I think that was due to like the STAIR funding was a new funding to do with an executive director, and we hoped maybe grants would start rolling in. Would the policy ensure that when the funds were sent out, that same kind of year by year policy was included, or could be?
Yes, the policy requires a new application every year.
Correct. So there's no multi-year approvals, it's annual. Okay, thank you. Other questions from council? So this means that all 6 of those individually allocated numbers are at the 2025 level and the coalition funding is staying in there at this time. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We are now on page 114. We have the budget reduction report for receipt of information. We'll just receive the information and then CAO Wall has a presentation. All those in favor of receipt? And that passes unanimously, and I'll turn it over to CAO Wall.
Yeah, sorry, not a presentation, just an introduction. What we're seeing in our budget right now is pretty tough fiscal pressures upwards. If you take a look at the report, we can see that we have fixed costs going up this year by 7.7%. I think that when council can recall the start of this term, one of the items that was identified as a major risk was the understaffing across the organization. And we were able to address that in certain areas and try and get up to a place where we could sort of stabilize, which I do think that we were able to accomplish. The reality in this organization is that for probably the past 20 years, we haven't really invested in ourselves. And so the modernization work that needed to have taken place didn't really happen. I was quite surprised when I moved down here from the north, actually, when I took the position, because I thought I was coming to a fairly modern and progressive community, which in some ways it was, but the internal workings of the organization were certainly not there. And we've been really lucky through the Housing Accelerator Fund to be able to modernize our planning department and convince the province to let us do a few more modernizations through the HAF grants. But there are some pretty big issues that are coming up here in the near future. One of the items I identify in this report is the need for new base financial software. So Campbell River is in the process of upgrading theirs, and their budget grew from when I was talking to them 3 years ago from 1.1, 1.2 million. They're now at 3 and counting. We also need to get budgeting software. So there's a bunch of items technologically that we need to invest into in our organization. And sort of as the community grew, the municipal organization wasn't. So you saw a lot of compression within the departments and that and within our budgets. And so what that means is when we take a look at the type of reductions that council's asked us to explore in this report, it really can only come with service level reductions. And that is the crux of this report, is the type of funds in order to reduce has to come at the expense of service levels, which are tied to positions. And so this report is to provide council a look at kind of where the options are and ask if this is, a process that you want to move into, and take a look at what service levels council is comfortable with reducing. Since we added those positions at the start, I don't think we've added any other positions in the town of Comox in the last 3 years. And that's both positive, but it is concerning when you take a look that we have an 8.76% tax increase this year with no new positions to be added because our COVID increases. So we locked in our collective agreement right at the perfect time, probably honestly 2 months before the COVID inflation took off. And so we're now having to do the COVID inflation bump for staff and a 1% increase in salary, because Comox is so residentially dependent, is a 1% increase in taxes. And so you're seeing that, you're seeing the RCMP costs in here, you're seeing the fire department. And so that's not to say that council doesn't have decision-making power over this. You have lots of leeway on where you may want to go. But what it does mean is that the type of reductions that were asked to be considered here need to be accompanied with service level reductions.
Thank you for that introduction. And I just want to thank all senior leadership for having to go through exercise. It's probably quite uncomfortable, and for all staff for allowing us to do this exercise. And it's not just an exercise, but we have to use the lens of fiscal responsibility when we're looking at these huge tax increases, and just seeing what a 1.0 FTE in each department as far as capacity and service level, I think is a very important thing for us to do. So I hope we can take people and positions out of it and just look at it as for understanding what the effects on each different department is, knowing that it's a challenge to discuss publicly and a challenge to discuss in a position mindset. So I have a couple quick questions. It looks like the special projects budget is one that's somewhat increased over the last couple of years from our last term until this term, and trying to understand. I think there possibly is some appetite to lower that with the intent that it might have to stay lower for the years to come to actually get the impact that we want. What if we start borrowing funds or amortizing things like the financial software, then it's not quite that 1 year hit of $1 million or whatever that cost would be. Is that likely something that we would be able to look at doing for some of these big special projects, and then being required to really limit maybe some of the smaller, medium-sized special projects to be able to go from a 500,000, let's say, to a 350,000?
Yeah, so when we went through the process a few years ago, the $500,000 special projects budget was created to say, hey, we're going to take a look at how much money we're spending in these different areas. And we took a look at previous spending, and then we took a look at our income. And so council at the time decided 500,000 was about what we needed. I'd say in the last 2 years, we spent somewhere between 300 and 400,000. So it's been around, say on average, 350. And so to your question, if you reduce, actually, before we get to reductions, your question is how do you look at amortizing these large capital investments into the organization?
Marcia, is it something that we can do if we're looking at $1 million project? Can we think that at minimum we can probably do a decade or 10-year amortization, and we're looking at 100,000 on something that is critical to the organization, like financial software that's needed?
Yes, you can do that. And if you want to do that in a way that does not impact taxes, then what you would have to do is say, we have a $500,000 special projects budget. We are going to make the investment into financial software. Let's say it's $2 million invested over or amortized out over 10 years. So then $200,000 would need to come out of there, and that would be locked out. And then your special projects budget now reduces down to 300. If you're at that 350, then you'd go down to 150.
Okay, so that's one option for council to consider. And I'll just ask one more question, then go around the table and leave it at that. With the fire hall build out, is there any implication on revenue required if we do get the largest provincial grant? I think it was close to 4 million. What would the implication on revenue required be on that?
Yeah, maybe I can ask Chief Schreiner if he recalls what the cost at full payment once it's fully into the taxes, what that is per year.
I'm not sure exactly what that would look like, but the budget for the fire hall is just over 6 million. The grant's 5 million. There's some other funding opportunities there, so maybe the treasurer can.
Yeah, Director Henley, do you recall? I can find it. I want to say it's $40 a year. So we can pull that number. I think it's around $40 per year, and so you've got it.
I don't have things by household. I have it by dollars.
Yeah.
Fire hall expansion, assuming 6.2 million at 5%, we'd be looking at our portion being 53,249, assuming DCCs are eligible and all that jazz.
Okay, I'll pull up the number of what it means per household, but I would say that would reduce the needed increase by whatever that number is. I want to say it's $45 per household. I believe that when you factor in all of the revenue gap that we actually have to provide the same level of service, and if you add in the need for a new town hall, we're probably looking at needing about $500 more per representative household in order to close all of that gap. So if the fire hall grant comes in, you're going from $500 more down to probably around $450 more. And I know, well, that may sound like a lot because it is a lot. It does put Comox's taxes in line with other communities that are similar to what we are. You know, Comox is so residentially dependent. You have to look at bedroom communities to compare the tax bases and you compare the services, and that we do have a lot of room to grow in our tax rates in order to match the type of communities that we represent.
Okay, and we don't have the numbers on town hall or haven't really gone through that yet. So it's sounding like the $18 million town hall that has not been not been approved or discussed. Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I don't really have any questions. I have more comments. And I guess I was really worried about the impact that on staff in trying to do this exercise. And having seen what the result has been, I think we need to recognize how lean our budget really is. You know, we're in the lower half of the province in terms of our tax rates. And we know that our staffing component is really lean. So I think it's also worth remembering that over 50% of our property tax is out of our control. When you figure out the school, the library, the hospital, the regional district, the RCMP agreements, and inflation are just a few of the things that impact this increase. No one likes to pay taxes. And now the deferral program is changing at the provincial level. And I fear the impact on our community is probably going to be felt disproportionately given the number of seniors. But also lowering the project fees, I feel is a little short-sighted. Working for years at improving and modernizing, as we've heard from our CAO, and it would be a shame not to continue with completing that process. I think the $55 that has been identified for the average household maintains the level of service, then I think most taxpayers would see that as a plus. We expect our garbage cans to be empty, our roads to be plowed, and our community center to be available. If these services are lessened, it will be a constant reminder and disappointment to our citizens. It seems like good value compared to the alternative. I'm speaking in favor of keeping the tax rate at what we were normally given and asking our communications to be proactive in explaining how the property tax system works.
Thanks for those comments. You might need those again for when there's a motion. We'll go to Councillor Haslett and then Councillor Grant.
Thanks. Yeah, when we looked at this exercise, to me, it wasn't about eliminating employees. It wasn't about what we need to do to decrease service levels or increase service levels. It was really trying to get a strong grasp on where all the money was going and operationally how, if we can tighten our belts and see if we can stretch a dollar a little bit more. We've got unbelievably strong staff. The projects that we do pick are really excellent things that are going to impact the community. I wanted to see this exercise go forward though, so that we could have a better look at where the money was going and if there was something that we could see that was going to allow us to be able to decrease the tax limit. I mean, $55 based on the report here, $55 a year per household doesn't sound like very much at all. And you know, I don't want to say that it isn't very much at all, but it's a small amount for the services that we have. I do think it's, as Councillor Swift said, incredibly important that we communicate where the majority of our tax bills going, be it the RCMP, regional district, and so on. Again, it wasn't, if the report came back and it showed, you know, we are maximizing every dollar we have to the absolute best amount, I could live with that. I have no problem, but I think it was a duty of ours to show the residents of the community that we're watching the money. And that was the biggest thing that I wanted to see happen with this this project. We didn't want to cause any undue stress. We didn't want to make people feel like their jobs were at risk. It was simply to get a better look at where the money was going so that we could make better informed decisions based on what we have coming in for our budget every year. You know, based on the information here, the timing of the exercise, as well as, you know, we've, you know, more or less set our tax bill. I can understand why we're setting everything at 876, where with no new positions, why that is, you know, a large amount of money, but also not a large amount of money with where we need to be. And yeah, it was really the biggest thing for me was watching the money to make sure that we're using it efficiently for our taxpayers. So.
We're going to jump over to Councillor Mayer. I got it a cue to Councillor Grant, so we'll go Councillor Mayer and then Councillor Grant, and then I will look online.
Thanks. Maybe I'll just start with a question for CAO Wall. How has this report been received by staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think across the majority of the organization, it's probably not been considered too much, but there's a difference between the majority of the organization and individuals who are, I think the right word would be vulnerable based on the report and the service levels council are going to make. And you know, vulnerable individuals in any situation feel impacts more largely, and the impact and fear is certainly part of what would be experienced.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a tough time to be a public servant, watching all of the cuts federally and provincially as well. So I just want to take a moment as well to acknowledge the service of all staff and huge appreciation. I think we continuously ask our public servants to do more with less. And that's been my experience as a public servant myself over the years. I agree very much with Councillor Swift. I'm supportive of the rate that we had set coming into this exercise. I think for the $55 per household, we're getting quite an extraordinary deal. I also, just going back to our strategic priorities that we set at the beginning of this term, and organizational excellence was one of those. We talked about modernizing and creating stability as a way to ensure high quality service delivery over time. And I'm really proud actually of the gains that have been made over the last couple of years in that regard. Another question to CAO Wall. I think there have been a couple of different times where we've talked about longer term planning with taxes so that we can maybe not have to do exercises like this. Is there a better way, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so the better way is for us to get a better picture of what our long-term financial needs are. And I think that we've done a lot of work on that, and we are trying to get a more accurate picture every year. There's a good news and a bad news situation in answering your question. The good news, if council recalls, in running for council for this term, staff did a number of presentations on sort of what we thought you could expect coming into this council term and the type of decisions you were going to have to make and what the difficult things were going to be. And I think we've been able to sort of accomplish almost everything. I think everything that was in that list. It's been great, and that's good news. The bad news is for anybody that's considering running for council, that list is going to be much shorter for the council that is coming in. This council has done a lot of work to catch up on a multitude of stuff that hadn't been done in this organization ever. The reality of the next council, the majority of what they are going to have to do is close the fiscal gap. That is what we will be talking to the people about who are running for council on the next term, is we have a significant revenue shortfall and we are going to have to raise it. We are going to have to close that gap quickly, unless you're willing to go into significant debt, and those revenue increases are going to not be associated with significant service level increases. So I guess heads up if you're thinking about running again, that's going to be a major issue that we do have to tackle. I wish we didn't, and I hide from our CFO as much as I can, but when he catches me, he likes to remind me that we are in trouble in our asset replacement and the money that we have in our reserves.
Thanks, CAO Wall. Thank you for the questions, Councillor Mayer. I apologize about the line there. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm really glad we did this exercise, actually, because, you know, it takes the notion in my mind out of the fact that there's a bunch of fluff in there that we could get rid of. There really isn't a lot that we could do. One thing that I've always hated about budgets, and I hate it as much on this one, is when we talk in percentages. If we would just talk in dollar amounts, it makes so much more sense, right? Like, you know, we might have a 30% increase, but our budget might have started at nothing, or we might have put a large project in, and we just talk in percentages, it gets out of whack. So yeah, it would be nice if we could do it that way. But I was just looking at our special projects budget. And there's a couple of things in there, and I just don't know what they are. Like, we've got future IT modernization initiatives and strategic operational improvements. That kind of screams of slush fund in some ways. So I just want to make sure I know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're larger catch-all terms for what we need to do. When we bring the projects to council, they're specified and we say what we're going to do. But future IT modernization initiatives, that is getting off, for example, the Marina software that we're looking at implementing and we're working towards. We just had a meeting today about our asset management software, bringing that on board, and that's going to have 2 phases. So just getting those things in places, getting those sort of modern, large organization solutions in place that you would tend to see already in an organization our size, strategic operational improvements. I'm not even going to try and throw out a few of what those projects would be, but those are the ideas, is that it's meant to provide funds to be able to invest into the organization. And also beyond that, you know, council sometimes has ideas that you guys want to implement, and the special projects budget can be used for those sorts of things as well. So that is what that money is there for. 500,000, you know, if it changes, that's up to council. I would just say that if the idea is to amortize our larger projects like financial software over a longer period of time, then that will come out of the special projects budget, and you'll be left with what's over. You'll be left with the leftover.
Councillor Grant, follow up.
Sue, yeah, so I'm just wondering, over the years, you know, I think what people get when they get their tax bill, they get confused with all of the things like Maureen was talking about. And, you know, our amount on the tax bill is usually fairly low or reasonable. It's everybody else that joins in. And I've always wondered why we couldn't just highlight the Comox portion in yellow when we send out a tax form. I know it's more expensive to do, but I think it would really take a lot of the hassle away when people get their tax bill and realize what we're actually talking about. Because when you go downtown and you talk to people about taxes, they don't even know that they're getting taxed for many of those things on our tax bill, right? And so we get the blame for all of it when only a small portion of it is actually ours. So that's one thing. I've brought that up many times in the past, and it never seems to happen. But
we actually have had an insert the last 2-ish years that does clearly state that tries to work to that based on our
nobody reads those, so I'd prefer to just highlight it, honestly. I mean, I've seen the inserts, I've been through all that 100 times, right? And I think if you just highlight and put note, everybody looks at the yellow line, right? And then you can just note it on there. So I think that would be a better way to do it. But the other question I had is, so when we're talking about the $55, we're talking, that would be the reduction. If we dropped our taxes, would be approximately 55. So what are our average taxes today? What is the average guy in Comox paying today for our portion?
Ooh, I know off the top of my head, I know the average tax bill. I don't know the average portion. And so and that's part of the reason it gets complicated, is because you have the general taxation levy that comes from Comox, and then you have the infrastructure levy, and then you have our user fees for water and sewer. But the Director Henley.
I hope to improve that information to council on the upcoming, when we present the upcoming property tax calculations. We've only received so far the levy from the Vancouver Island Regional Library. We haven't received from the school, the hospital, all the other ones. We still haven't received anything yet, and we're still waiting for the final revised tax bill. So we're missing almost all of the information to provide that. But I'm hoping to provide better breakout that'll be in an updated budget package with those extra information on taxes. Maybe a pie chart that shows what percentage of the total bill goes to, maybe in yellow. For example, the for the municipality versus the other agencies. So hopefully be bringing that in the next month or so.
Okay.
But I can answer the question in relation to the overall tax bill. So the overall tax bill for a representative house is going to be about $4,500. So if you were able to achieve that $55 reduction, you'd go from $4,500 to $4,450.
Okay. Right. That's a better number.
45.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to go over to Councillor Haslett.
I know one of the things Comox has prided itself on for years is the ability to say that we're not in debt. At what point does a community kind of break that and start to borrow more?
We are likely going to have to. If we do not get the grant for the fire hall, we will have broken that, and we will have to do it. It just really is. So when we took a look, I've got to go back a number of years and try and remember this, but when we took a look at closing the infrastructure gap, the difference in interest over the life cycle of the assets, which was about 25 years, was that every year we waited to close the infrastructure gap added about $1 million in payments over that 20 years. And so that is because we have $380 million of infrastructure, that those interests compound. And so that is sort of the scale of the difference of funding it through reserves, which are building interest, and debt, which is paying interest.
Just a quick question on the summer student program. Is that something that's co-funded with the provincial government, or is that when it's summer students, which I believe the program is out right now, is that fully funded through Town of Comox?
We make applications, I would say, for probably the last. Is Shelley here? Oh, there you are. I'd say for the last 3 years, we haven't been successful in getting any summer grants. So a summer student costs the town about $22,000 a year. The grants pay about $7,000. So when you get the grants, it's about $14,000-15,000. But yeah, a summer student position costs about $22,000, which is only between 1/4 to 1/5 of an FTE.
Okay, that was a number I was looking for as far as what the FTE would look like overall. So, so we are on receipt, which we have received. Sorry, is there Councillor Kerr online? My apologies.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate it. So yeah, I just really want to just highlight and echo Councillor Swift's really tremendous words a few minutes ago. I really agree with those sentiments, and to be even more brief, just my real takeaways from this report are, number one, our taxes are low compared to other communities. Number two, our staffing levels are low. There's no excess in terms of positions, and we do have a lean organization, even with the recent additions. And number three, that service levels are still superb despite all of this. So I echo those comments that I'm happy with. Given all of the outside forces and all of the uncontrollable things that we have coming against us as a council, that the tax rates are appropriately where they should be, given our level of service and level of staffing. So I just want to maybe just end and just thank the town staff, especially the senior managers that had to go through this exercise. I know it was likely very hard at times. And I just want to thank all staff at all levels for the great service that you provide our citizens. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Kerr. Looking around the table, I don't see further questions. I just want to thank all councillors for echoing their appreciation for all of our senior leadership and town staff on this report. And we are on receipt. We have just received this report in the last couple of days, so there still will be some time to discuss the special projects budget, which I do plan on bringing back to the table, but I'm going to leave for tonight. But I hope people feel rest assured in some of the comments that were received tonight, and we will have new future tax deliberations in the near future on that $55 that we are looking at for 2026. And thank you to CEO Wall for bringing that forward. So we are on special reports, which there are none. There are no bylaw adoptions. And on page 121 under new business, we have the application to UBCM Development Approvals Program 2026 that we endorse the grant application for $200,000 for the Local Government Development Approvals Program. Moved and I'll second. Any questions or comments on number 1? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. And number 2, that council supports the town of Comox by utilizing the grant and providing overall grant management if the funding application is successful. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on number 2? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes. Thank you. We will hopefully receive that. We're on page 125, the development variance permit for 26-2 for 380 Knight Road. That DVP 26-2 be approved, and further that administration be directed to issue the permit. But I am just going to pause. Nope. I believe we were going to just quickly check if there was an updated motion that we could be looking at to get the federal funding. I'm just going to look over to. Okay, looks like we do. I'll see if there's a motion on the floor and then we can discuss. Councillor Grant, did you want to go on that? Yeah, we're just looking for federal incoming feedback.
Are we, sorry, I lost my spot. Are we on B? Development
We are
variance permit
on
26
B, page 125, and the staff recommendation was that Knight Road be approved. And we're potentially looking at now that it be approved, but once they have approved with the condition that federal feedback is received potentially.
You can do that honestly with the feedback that you have received from the airport and the base. It might be more appropriate to defer this decision and request that the applicants seek further consultation and approval from those jurisdictions.
Okay, sounds like we have some different stuff coming out from talking to staff and planning. That's great. Does someone want to make that motion?
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm just going to get mics, please, just so people online can hear.
I'll move it.
Thank you. That's been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, so any questions or comments on deferring until the applicant has received that federal feedback? Councillor Hazlitt.
Thank you. Yeah, I think at the last moment there, we received a email from Mike Atkins at the airport, just expressing some concern. I think it would be best if the resident would reach out to the airport to see what a better fit might be. At first glance, having a look at this, it didn't look like it was too big of an issue at all. But I do think that with the proximity to the base and the airport, that we include them a little bit more in the decision.
Okay, I hadn't seen that yet, so that's good feedback. I'll go over to, was there someone on this side of the table that had a comment? Okay, so we're deferring until they can get further feedback from the Comox Airport and the federal government. Is that correct? Correct. Okay, any further questions or comments before that is deferred?
Sorry, do we have a motion?
There is a motion on the table.
Thanks.
Great. All those in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor Kerr, I'm just going to do that one more time. It might have been a delay. All those in favor of deferring? Perfect. Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. We are now on page 149, but that has been removed. So we're moving on to page 176. We have the temporary use permit 2026-0006 for 1829 Beaufort Avenue for approval. And that is on a 3-year temporary use permit for the Montessori School.
Move.
That has been moved and seconded. Questions or comments on this application? Councillor Hazlitt.
Through the staff, how have the conversations been going with respects to the pickup and drop off parking down towards the marina area? Obviously, we have the private marina, our marina, and the government marina. We've got the Stair Center across the street. We have town staff parking. Parking is at an absolute jam down there. So what's the feedback been or the conversation been between the two groups?
I'll pass it over to Director Houle.
Through the chair to Councillor Hazlitt, there hasn't been much discussion about setting up a spot at the marina or along those lines, as the delegation mentioned. I'll note that there is parking on that site. There's also parking along the street, not directly in front of the building, but slightly down to the west. But there hasn't been any conversations really about parking at the marina.
So what is, Director Houle, can you talk about what the parking plan and drop-off plan is for the organization?
Sure. In their letter that was submitted to council, they did speak to parking down at the marina. So that's their plan, as they mentioned today at the delegation, to meet in the morning and have the kids walk up and do the same at the evening. But I just wanted to point out that there is other parking options as well adjacent to the site.
Thanks for that clarification, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, so I asked that question just because I didn't want to see a schmozzle like you see at a lot of the schools where everybody pulls in for 10 minutes and then pulls out. But I can't remember how many kids she said they would have at full capacity. And I think she said there was only going to be about 4 staff. So, I mean, I don't have a big problem with the staff. And if it's, say, 80 kids, I think she said, then
It's
is it-
28 in the application, but in the presentation, she said it would go up to 40 in year
okay,
two.
so that's not a lot of cars coming in and out at any given time, and they would be at 8:30 in the morning, so I think I'm good with that.
Thank you. And just checking, because it does say up to 28 in the staff report, and she mentioned verbally 40. Is that something in the temporary use permit that is like labeled at 28? And so there's a bit of a miss challenge there. Director Houle.
Thank you, Worship. There's no limit placed currently in the draft permit, but council could limit the number of students if you felt that was necessary.
Yeah, I guess if it could go from 28 to 40 to suddenly 80 or 90, we may want to be aware of that changing. Not saying it would, but it would be maybe something good that we could have discussion if we're looking at a 2 or 3 year temporary use permit. I'm just going to go over to Councillor Hazlitt.
I'm just wondering what the thought around the board would be a 2-year permit. They mentioned it would light a bit of a fire underneath them, but still that they would take it and run. I think if we were to look at a 2-year permit, it might help. Well, not probably help, but really get them moving to look for more formalized central location. And in addition to that, in the event that it is a bit more of an issue than we think it may not be, that it at the end of the day is only 2 years.
I'm just going to go over to Director Houle through CAO.
Sorry, through your worship, but just to jump in, I did want to clarify that in their letter of intent, it does say that they have a firm enrollment cap of 28 students and that their model is designed up to 40 students. So in their letter, they are indicating that they have a firm enrollment cap of 28. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thanks, but it's, I guess, still a lever that we can choose to use or not. Other questions around the table? Councillor Swift.
I'm happy with the 3-year permit. It's, the wheels turn really slowly, and to have a site and be ready to move off in 2 years is probably really a pipe dream. So I'm happy with the application as it stands, 28 students and for 3 years.
Thanks for those comments there. And Councillor Blacklock.
Yeah, I would also speak in favor of granting the 3-year temporary use permit. And I know that the school will be willing to work with us should issues arise as we go. I would also note that, you know, parking and drop off, when I think of the last private school that ran in Courtney for some time at the Waldorf School in Tintown, that facility ended up being a 2-building facility, and they had all sorts of problems with traffic and pickup and drop off. Tintown, as you know, in Courtney is a very dense neighborhood with lots of cars in and out. And I think that I don't know the reason why that Waldorf school failed, but one of the reasons I could see was the difficulty in the traffic in the area and the perception among parents that it wasn't exactly a safe environment, very little green space and walking paths in Tintown. So I would acknowledge that this is not probably a good location for the permanent location of this school, but I think when you're starting up, you take where you can get, and I think this is as good as any spot.
Thanks for those comments. Looking around the table, if there are any further comments. And so has the motion been made, just to confirm, a while back there? So it's a 3-year temporary use permit at 1829 Beaufort Avenue with their current application. If there are no further questions or comments, all those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We are on page 188. We have the fees and bylaw notice updates that the sanitary sewer bylaw number 2057 be given first, second, and third reading.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Number 2, that storm drain connection amendment bylaw number 892.06 be given first, second, and third reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes. Number 3, that the water rates and regulations amendment bylaw number 529.35 be given first, second, and third readings.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on number 3? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Number 4, that the street and traffic amendment bylaw number 1358.07 be given first, second, and third readings.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions on number 4? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 5, that the fees and charges bylaw be given first, second, and third readings.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on number 5? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Number 6, that the bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 2004.04 be given first, second, and third readings.
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on number 6? All those in favor? Opposed? And that passes unanimously. And number 7, that the miscellaneous bylaws amendment number bylaw 2059 be given first, second, and third readings.
Second.
Any questions or comments on number 7? All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. There are no new notices of motion. Under correspondence on page 255, we have a letter from Royal LePage Snow to Surf for the Town of Comox Marina Park request for Sunday, April 26th, 2026 for their 43rd annual Snow to Surf. And they're looking for the boat launch to be closed from 7 to 5, that town bleachers and staff barricades be provided for crowd control, and that the organizer comply with all special town event requirements. If I can get a motion.
Move and we'd grant the request.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments for Snow to Surf on Sunday, April 26th at Marina Park? All those in favor of granting their request? And that is passed unanimously, and we wish them all the best on a very fun event this year, the 43rd annual. There are no late items, so we're going to do reports from council, and just a reminder that we will just do any updates on things that are happening at the boards you attended and not necessarily events that we attended, just to keep things moving. So we have Councillor Blacklock, Swift, and Haslett.
I request that I be last this week.
You definitely can, and you are welcome to pass if you need to, just to give you some feeling for you over there. He's got an injury, so we're going to give him a break here for sure. I'll go online to Councillor Kerr, and then you're welcome to pass, Councillor Blacklock. Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, nothing to report. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming online there. Councillor Grant.
Let Councillor Swift talk about the sewer, because I know she'll be, she doesn't remember it. But at the rec commission meeting, the big issue was ice allocation, and they've changed the way they do ice allocation now to, you have to be a Comox Valley citizen in order to be able to book ice. And if you're not, I think it's about 75% of the time, 25% can be from out of town, because they're getting so full that they just can't keep all of that. So that one was done at the hospital board meeting. Hang on here. We talked about the long-term care facility in Campbell River, and it was canceled in the provincial budget. And so we'll be sending a delegation down to meet with Premier Eby to talk about that, because there's a lot of, I could go on for a long time on this, but it's a big deal for Campbell River. They already canceled the hub here in the Comox Valley, and so they really want to sit down and talk to them, because we were going to put quite a whack of money into that to make it happen, and they just canceled it. So, and what else was there? That was about it, I think, for me. So there you go.
Thanks, Councillor Grant. Councillor Mayer.
I just attended the Food Policy Council meetings, which is both a meeting of the whole and municipal subgroup meeting. That's it. Nothing else to report.
Thank you. And we'll go to Councillor Haslett and then Swift.
Nautical Days meeting. We're discussing the bands coming up. The green team will be on our next agenda, I believe. Amongst setup of the setup of the property. Yeah, we're moving along full steam ahead. Still looking for sponsors, and we did welcome the 3 new members as well. So that was fantastic to have them all there.
Great. Thank you for representing Comox there, Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I attended the sewage commission meeting, and there's a great push from the province to work on our I&I in the sewer system, and it's very expensive. And at the staff level, I know they're working through it, and I think it's going to be over 10 years. Shelley's still here. Yeah, so that's one at the sewage meeting. I attended the regular Philburg board meeting, and they're gearing up for their Easter event, which is April 4th. And they're also going to do an Earth Day event this year on April 22nd. And one of the things they want to do there is talk about being an arboretum and promoting their legacy tree program, which they still have 13 trees available. If anybody would like to sponsor a tree, it can be a corporate sponsor, or there's a variety of ways you can do it. And then lastly, there was a small electrical fire at at the lodge over, I think it was the Family Day weekend. There was somebody walking by, and one of the electrical outlets that didn't have proper weatherproofing had shorted out, and there was a timer hanging off it which caught fire but dropped to the cement. So there was actually no damage done. The fire department arrived, everything worked out, but it did highlight the need for some work at that park. And so further to that, the facilities manager has been down, and they're working on doing an electrical audit of the property. So it seems to be well in hand, but in case you heard that there was a fire there, there was a little one, and no damage was actually done.
I have some event promotion from the Comox Valley Community Justice Center. On April 9th, we will be hosting acclaimed author Michelle Good. Michelle is a lawyer, advocate, and Order of Canada recipient, and she will be speaking on getting under the myth of Canadian history. Tickets available at the Laughing Oyster Bookshop, 15% discount if you buy one of her books, and the tickets are $20.50, ranging up to $38. The date of this will be on Thursday, April 9th. So we are looking forward to hosting Ms. Good on the 9th of April.
Thanks so much, Councillor Blacklock. Some exciting news today, and thank you to Korean Communications. The announcement that the town of Comox acquired the 2.6 hectare property called the Newson Family Nature Park has gone out. So that's the 6.4 acres between Mac Lang Park and McDonald Wood. So that announcement went out today, which is being really well received by the community, and a really exciting green space that's been added in the heart of Comox. So you'll maybe be hearing some questions around that in the next couple days and weeks, but that went out this afternoon, and it's a really exciting announcement that came out. Overall, there's been lots of media inquiries. We have the totem pole. It's going to be at the top of Glacier View, our back road, that is done by Carver Everson. That went out to the community about a week and a half ago, and is also getting a lot of buzz with it. And the date for the unveiling is still yet to come, but it's the work on the totem pole is coming along really nicely, and that is in collaboration with Comox First Nation. And I know we have a couple staff that are working with their cultural heritage group there. So thank you so much for that. As well as the 25-year golf lease has been getting some attention, and our official community plan. So lots of town of Comox activity out in the news these days. And the golf course is back open. They did some renovations in the restaurant, so they're opening their doors to the public for some of their special events and dinners. Last Wednesday, the Wounded Warriors came through town. They were on a mission over 8 days, running across Vancouver Island over to Port Alberni and back down to Victoria. They had a goal of raising $250,000 this year for mental health for their fire, police, paramedics, and they were actually able to achieve they're at 280 to 290,000. So they blew over their budget, which is really amazing to see because we're hearing that organizations are having a harder time fundraising, but they did a really great job, and they went through, I believe they went to the RCMP, and then we met them out at 19 Wing and Legion 888. So it was really nice to welcome them for Comox. And I will leave it at that. I did attend the library AGM. They sent over our tax requisition, and it was sitting around 4.9 to 5% for the town of Comox, which is the number that we were able to get for the next year with their plan. So they pulled back some of their financials to get it to that 4.95% for town of Comox. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn at 7:15. All those in favor of adjournment? Great, we are adjourned, and thank you so much to everyone in attendance this evening. It is much appreciated to have you in person.